Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Caselli, and I will be chairing today. I wanted to first go over how the process works in case you weren't here yesterday. We're using some technology called Slido, and it's sli.do. And with that, you're free to ask questions via text. So essentially, if you went to sli.do, you could type in the hashtag LAC 2017 and any questions you might have, and then they will appear up on the Slido screen at the end of the presentation. You could also raise your hand if you have any questions at the end of the presentation, and we'll come around. So you have every possible way to ask questions if you have any. And I hope you're going to have some, because we're going to talk about a pretty important topic this morning. Yesterday we talked about how to rank. Then we talked about what to do with your business once you had high-ranking keywords and great working sites and lots of traffic. But there's a missing piece to this puzzle, and that is, what keywords do you want to rank for? Do you just want to go for Hollywood words? Do you just want to go for obvious words? Or are there words that make more money than Hollywood words? Are there words that make more money than words that drive more traffic? These are all the questions that we have Stephen Kenwright here to answer this morning. He is from Branded 3. You are the Director of Search for Branded 3. And he is going to talk a lot about selecting keywords. So ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause as we invite Stephen to the stage.
Hello. So, my name is Stephen. I work for Branded 3. I'm not going to labor the introductions, to be honest. I'm going to start off with something that I think is probably the most underrated aspect of keyword research, and that's understanding the fact that there is, in fact, more than one search engine. Everyone kind of shits on Bing a little bit because it's not quite as big as Google in terms of volume of searches, and that's true. But in terms of volume of people that go through Microsoft-powered search engines, Bing and Yahoo together have about 78% of the number of people that visit Google every single month. So this is March 2016 in the UK. 2/3 of people in the UK visit Google at least once a month. But actually, not far off that, visit Bing or Yahoo. That doesn't necessarily mean that they type in bing.com and enter a search term. It doesn't necessarily mean that they forgot to change their homepage on Internet Explorer either, because Bing powers a whole host of other search technology, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the reason I wanted to put this up front is because if there's one thing, if you do only one thing I tell you to do today, it's this. And unironically, I've told you to search Google for Bing Ads Intelligence. You can search Bing for it, but the result that you want ranks number 1 on Google. It's slightly better. Bing Ads Intelligence is amazing if you haven't used it. You don't need to be a Bing customer. You don't need to advertise on Bing. All you need is a Microsoft account. That's Hotmail. It's fine. And it's an Excel plugin. Why wouldn't it be? It's an Excel plugin that allows you to do keyword research so easily. So it's quite hard to see that, but I've connected it to my Bing Ads account. Microsoft account works just fine. That's my Outlook address. And you've got a couple of different options. Press a button to get new keyword ideas. Press a button to get estimates of traffic. There's a whole number of templates in there all ready for you to use. I'm going to show you a couple of examples about why they're really cool. So instant keyword research. What I've done here is typed in the word bingo and pressed keyword suggestions, and it's come back with everything that Bing believes is related to bingo, pulled it straight into Excel with all of the search data that you could possibly want. Like I said, Google gives you this information, but you have to pay for it. You have to advertise on Google to be able to get it, whereas Bing will do it for free. Everything from CPC, so you can start to understand how competitive different terms are on Bing. And that's obviously not just from a paid search perspective, but also from an organic perspective. It can be incredibly powerful to just get those ideas quickly. Another example is age and gender reports, which is really interesting for us. I mean, one of our clients for the past 4 years has been Ladbrokes. And working with Ladbrokes, we've seen a huge split in the actual age demographics and genders, particularly of different products. As you might expect, bingo is predominantly female, and you can see that exactly with each individual keyword that Bing is advertising on. What's really interesting is when you're looking at actually who spends the most money when it comes to bingo, women aged 50 plus are the ones that tend to actually have the most money that they're willing to part with, but they're not the largest demographic. More women aged 30 to 50 actually go on bingo sites, so the volume is there, but actually if you're looking for who's going to spend the most money, women aged 50 plus. And with Bing, you can actually see what are the keywords that they are likely to be searching for versus anyone else, and there is quite a difference. Another interesting aspect of this is device split. So you can see on desktop, this is again just bingo, predominantly female, very large percentage of that blue there is female. You can see the ages as well, as I've kind of alluded to, an older demographic for bingo as well. It'll give you related searches, the ones that are really rising up at the minute, which are perhaps less competitive, so potentially ones that you might want to create content around. And you can see the difference as well on smartphones. So the audience is actually slightly different. The number of men on a smartphone on Bing is slightly higher. So again, you can see a difference between different keywords. It's not just all about your one Hollywood term, your one head keyword. It's about understanding out of those people that are searching for it, are they the right people that I want to be going after? Or is my audience, the people who are going to throw a load of money away on my site, are they searching for something completely different? Because the volumes might actually be similar of those people. But smartphone is, to be honest, the one reason why we don't talk about Bing. It's all about mobile when it comes to Google and not Bing. So the number of people searching Google on a mobile each month is about 50% in the UK. The number of people searching Bing on a smartphone is half that in a percentage. The actual frequency of searches, the volume of searches is so much less. Mobile is sewn up by Google. So mobile is really, if you feel that your audience is mobile focused, Google is the place to go. And it tends to be the case that most audiences are mobile focused. I think certainly if you spend a lot of time on a computer, if you are a marketer, if you are an affiliate, and you spend most of your time on a laptop or a desktop, it's easy to forget the fact that a lot of people don't do that. And a lot of people are actually on a smartphone at all times. So the average amount of time spent on a smartphone each month in number of hours is actually nearly twice that's spent on a desktop. Again, it's interesting to see demographics. On a smartphone, women spend a lot more time on smartphones than men do, whereas men spend slightly more time on desktop. So again, you can start to see a device split. So when you're looking at AdWords, you can see the difference in terms of devices in AdWords as well as Bing Ads Intelligence. You can start to get a focus of actually what keywords are people searching for on a mobile versus what they're searching for on a desktop, and how you could potentially differentiate between those and find the less competitive. Smartphone is only going to get bigger. So about this time last year, the percentage of people in the UK with a smartphone was about 71%. We're on track to see more than 80% this year, so clearly it's growing in a fairly consistent fashion. At some point soon, we're going to see everyone on a smartphone. What's really interesting is people kind of have this perception that when you are on your smartphone, you're out and about, you're maybe in a shop or in a coffee shop or something like that, and that's where you're using it, and therefore speed is everything. Actually, the percentage of 4G subscriptions in the UK, that's nearly 2/3 of the population over a year ago had 4G access. And again, we're on track to seeing nearly a full, everyone in the UK being able to get on 4G. So where actually are you when you search on your mobile phone? Most people are at home. This is according to Google. If you look Ofcom, it's pretty consistent. Most people search mainly at home, potentially at home and outside. So again, mobile is quite an interesting topic because it's not something that happens throughout the day as much. It's when people are actually sat at home looking for something to do, potentially when is the right time for us to be actually getting those searches. That's when people are on their smartphones, not just when they're nipping out and about. So the reason that I'm kind of bringing this up, this is one of Google's studies, so take this with a pinch of salt. This is about micro moments. It's about trying to understand the intent behind particular keyword searches and trying to understand what people are doing or wanting to do when they search for something. What's really interesting is everyone focuses on this I want to buy moment or I want to play moment. I want to buy, people kind of think, okay, so someone wants to buy something, they're looking for a checkout process, they want to just add something to their basket and go, but actually, if they were doing that, they would probably just go to Amazon. What they're looking for, if they're on Google or Bing, is information. So they're not looking for a checkout process specifically. Now, this is a client example from about a year ago. This is City Index, so we do a lot of Forex trading, a lot of spread betting, etc. So keywords at the top, which are quite difficult to see, I appreciate from you guys. The top two left-hand sides are Forex trading. That's the keyword. So people are searching for an entity, a concept. People are looking for an informational result. So we get a rich answer. So we've got the top of the results there for what is Forex trading, but just generally Forex trading. So that's City Index. People, because we're trying to provide an informational result and because we're actually giving some decent information off the back of that, we get a bigger snippet than everyone else. Our meta description is much, much bigger than everyone else's because we've correctly anticipated that intent. Now on the right-hand side, trade Forex. There's an intent there to actually do something. There's an actions, I want to buy moment, I want to do moment. And again, because we've anticipated the intent, we get a bigger snippet than everyone else. These generic pages that are designed to rank for everything, which is what the larger websites tend to do, are very poorly optimized for any specific term. So where in the old days of SEO, what would you do when you wanted to rank for bingo? You'd have one bingo page and you'd pump links into it and you would make it answer everything. Actually, that's the opposite of what we need to do now. What we actually need to do is answer every single question in the best way possible because every one of these large providers fails to do so. That's the gap in the market for affiliates. So this is potentially a separate spread betting site. We have 4 or 5, so I'm not going to tell you who it is. Mobile is huge, despite the fact that the audience for spread betting, the people who are potentially going to be partnering with money, who they actually are and where they're actually going to be trading. Maybe they are going to be trading on a laptop, but when they're looking for information, they're looking on their mobile phone. So when we're doing a strategy for City Index, for example, or SpreadX, or Think Forex, our strategy is around that informational content because traders want to know what's happening right now, what could potentially affect what I'm doing. So that kind of information is where we're grabbing people on a mobile phone and they're coming back to us later on a desktop. And one of the arguments that we always see against mobile as well is that the conversion rates are lower. And that's not true. It's not true anymore for most of our websites. Conversion rates on mobile are increasing all the time when we're optimizing for mobile first. And again, affiliates is a very interesting space because if you're competing with the likes of Ladbrokes or William Hill or anyone like that, the mobile experience is much, much poorer than the desktop experience. And naturally, everything's held together with sticky tape. So if you provide a better mobile experience, you naturally get a lot more traffic than you probably would have done if you're just trying to compete on a desktop. And we're starting to get much, much better conversion rates on mobile than we are on desktop, particularly on lead generation websites, potentially on affiliate websites as well. And it all comes down to understanding when people are searching for what. So this is an example of a client, and this is, again, fairly consistent. This is an example of a client who has TV advertising. And because they're on TV, people get out the mobile phone and search for it and convert right there and then. We have a car client that sells used cars who get a 15% better conversion rate when Top Gear is on. So it's all about understanding when are we going to fit into that person's life who's actually searching for us. So when we're looking at keywords, we're also going to look at why we rank where we rank, and when we're talking about smartphone, it's certainly worth talking about mobile friendly as well. So everyone kind of assumes that the mobile friendly update had very little impact, and the reason for that is that more than 80%, nearly 90% of websites were actually mobile friendly to begin with. So the impact that you noticed might have been much smaller. But here's an example of a client of ours that isn't mobile friendly. They firmly believe that their audience is not mobile and they don't want to be. So any other graph that you would see that shows the growth of search volume on desktop versus mobile would show you an intersection where mobile overtakes desktop in about 2015, which was the year of mobile, which also 2014 was the year of mobile, and so on and so forth, for about 5 years now. This isn't true when you're not mobile friendly. What's happening is that desktop traffic is declining, not because you're ranking worse, you're actually ranking a lot better in this instance, but because fewer and fewer people are searching on a desktop, they're searching on a mobile, and you don't provide a mobile friendly experience, you don't get that traffic. You can see the exact same thing. You can see the moment when we stop ranking particularly well on mobile. Mobile traffic is increasing. If there's ever going to be an indication to a client that they probably should provide a mobile-friendly experience, it's the fact that their mobile traffic is growing and their mobile traffic from Google, which is their biggest source, is shrinking. And you could also say that people are searching for different things, but that's not true as well. So as I alluded to before, AdWords very helpfully gives you the device split for each individual keyword. So across all of our keywords, we can see what devices people are searching for them on. The biggest one by far is mobile, and yet mobile traffic is so much smaller. It's not a case of if we provided a better mobile experience, we will get less desktop traffic. We wouldn't. They're completely separate. What we would do is get much more traffic overall. And then we can't talk about keywords without rankings. What we're tracking here is the difference in a mobile ranking versus a desktop ranking for these keywords. So if it was 0 all the way through, there would be no difference whatsoever. If you see the exact moment that mobile friendly hit, we're getting to about 9,000 places of difference for this client on mobile versus desktop across a couple of thousand keywords. So clearly the impact is actually quite substantial in that circumstance. So to understand ranking, we've got to understand how search engines work, and this is where we come into more strategic approach to keyword research and forecasting. Search engines basically have 4 main functions. They crawl the web, they index the web, then a user enters a search, they return the relevant results, and then they order them in a particular way. Keywords clearly play a part in this relevance aspect of things more than they play a part in the ranking side of things. So one misconception as well is that if you have a certain number of keywords, you'll rank better, you're more authoritative on a subject. Not necessarily true. You just have proved that you are relevant for that search. So let's look at relevance. I don't know how you guys can see the text on here. Send it around anyway, but it's just there to illustrate a point. So standard ranking report. I'd always recommend that when you're doing a ranking report, you use a rank checker that also provides pages as well as the actual ranking positions, because then you can start to see, firstly, am I right pages ranking, because often they're not, and secondly, you can start to understand why you're not getting the rankings that you want to. So SEMrush or Mars are really good for this. There's loads of others. AWR is the one that we use. I think a lot of people here probably use AWR as well. You can see, for example, for Optical Express, when you're searching for laser eye surgery, here is just something that we've pulled out that we think are the relevant keywords. As I said, you can do this with Bing Ads Intelligence or however you do keyword research usually. We can see that LASIK is a huge term that has absolutely no volume for Optical Express because they don't have a page for it. There's 200, there's nothing there. So we want to start making some assumptions. No ranking position means that there's no relevant page. If you are ranking, and you're outside of the top 20, the chances are your page isn't very good. A lot of the time you'll start to approach that with links, you'll start to build a lot more links. If everything is below 20, that's fine. If generally speaking, you are ranking between 20 and 200 for everything, you probably need more links. If you have some good rankings, if some of your positions are strong, actually, you probably have some weak pages, and that's where you need to start optimizing. So optimize those pages that are ranking outside of 20 to begin with. Where the wrong page is ranking, it's clearly because the right page is just not good enough. It's not necessarily a case of what we need to start doing is adding canonical tags, redirects, etc. We just need to improve a page that actually matches the intent that we're looking for. So just to put a quick forecast together, if you put all this in Excel, find your ranking position that's average across your website. So just filter the column for ranking positions, take out your 200s, and find out where you're actually ranking on average. As an assumption, if your average ranking across everything is 25, for example, if you create a new piece of content, you can be fairly confident that in a couple of weeks, it's also going to rank about 25th. So that helps you to prioritize what kind of content you should be creating, whether it is the fact that you should be creating more content. You can do the same with your competitors as well, so you can start to look at if you're particularly interested in a provider or a particular competitor, you can start to say, how good is my authority versus someone else's authority? And potentially this is a lot more accurate than something like domain authority or Moz metrics for actually grading how well your content is going to rank versus someone else's. Then apply a click-through rate model. The NetBooster one is really cool. We like the NetBooster one as a generic one. This is what it looks like. Rank first, get about 19% of clicks to your website. Stick this in the second sheet of your Excel file, use a VLOOKUP, pull it in. you can create your own click-through rate model, and I recommend you do this. So Google for calculate your true click-through rate, for example, click-through rate from Webmaster Tools, is this blog post, calculate true CTR Webmaster Tools. We show you how to actually create that. So there's a spreadsheet that you can download, just put it in there. We don't take any data off you. So we'll assume that we're using a generic model. I'll talk about custom models in a second, but if we're using a generic click-through rate model, this is what it looks like. If we're looking up search volumes, again, Bing Ads Intelligence or through AdWords API, pull that together, put your average monthly search volume, the CTR from the position where you rank, you can estimate how many clicks you're getting for each individual keyword to begin with. If your traffic's seasonal, so maybe if you do FA Cup odds, clearly you're going to get more searches for FA Cup odds when the FA Cup's about to happen, so you might want to not use the average monthly search volume, but actually use the search volume for the months that you actually care about the fact that someone might search for this. Another useful thing to do from a keyword point of view to really understand where your potential is to calculate your brand and non-brand split. So this is some helpful information that Google actually does provide. If you go into your Search Console profile, there is the search query report in there. Download that. It's not huge. It's about 5,000 lines of data, so 5,000 keywords that you currently get traffic for, that you currently rank for, and then just filter out your brand terms. So this is ours. We filter out the word branded because if someone is searching for something that includes the word branded, we assume it's a branded term for us because we're called Branded 3. So yours is obviously not the word branded. And then we can start to see actually what is the split between traffic that's brand and non-brand. About 20% of our traffic already knows who we are, 80% don't. That's our SEO traffic. This is something really helpful for a reporting point of view, but also to understand actually the keywords traffic that I'm estimating from my keyword research, like I just showed you, how does that differ from the traffic that we see that we're getting in Google Analytics? Generally speaking, if it's wildly different, your keyword research is not comprehensive enough and you need to start getting more keywords in. Over time, we could get really accurate with this. So you can see that the black there is our estimated keywords using this model. The blue is the total Google organic sessions that we're getting. And the discrepancy in there is our brand, non-brand split. That's the non-brand traffic that we think we're getting from Search Console. So over time, we want to include more and more non-brand terms in our reporting so we can get to a stage where we're not having any discrepancies there. And naturally, as you get better from an SEO point of view, you're going to get more non-brand traffic. This is quite a seasonal business, which is why it goes down at the end. So if you want to find more keywords, it depends how old you are as a business. GA has loads of historic data, not necessarily current data, but you still have some current data, which gives you some ideas of keywords that people are already finding you with. You want to find out what you currently rank for as well as what you ought to rank for, because that's something that often gets missed. Clearly, that's the most valuable traffic that you've already got. So SEMrush is a nice cheap way of doing this. I'm a big fan of Searchmetrics. Searchmetrics is my go-to tool for pretty much anything. But both of those tools will show you everything that you currently rank for, as does Google Search Console, shows you most things you rank for. And again, brand, non-brand split, you want to refresh that every month or so because it changes over time. And ideally, you want to be able to use that data consistently. As an aside, if this is something that you're interested in, you can actually start to estimate how much keywords are worth to you. So use your average order value, your conversion rate from particular keywords. You can actually see how much they will be worth to you if you create a new piece of content and then prioritize differently. Probably not relevant for everyone, but it's in the presentation. It's on SlideShare at the minute, so slideshare.net/branded3. You can just download this, and you'll be able to use any of the links in it as well. So if you're looking for gaps in a certain product, yes, you want to use your conversion rate average order value for that product. It's not always going to be relevant across every single product, and your average might be really skewed by something you do very well in. And if you're looking to optimize current content, as I said before, if you're going to create new title tags, for example, something that's really underrated, again, the large providers of most things, bingo, most sports betting, etc., the William Hills, the Labrooks, the Paddy Powers of the world really struggle to get this kind of basic optimization done. This is your battleground for competing with them. If you're going to optimize that, you can start to see exactly where you'll probably rank based on that average again. As I said, title tags, meta descriptions. Meta descriptions are a non-direct ranking factor, but we actually have seen a lot of success by consistently optimizing metadata, testing month on month, to the stage where we've got credit cards, keywords, and 70% click-through rates. So it's something that's not worth just doing once and leaving. You want to consistently keep testing to be able to get some accurate data there. When you're optimizing content, estimate you'll be adding 1 or 2 paragraphs. You don't need to create a huge how-to guide at the bottom of every page. If anything, that's probably going to make things worse. What you want to do is a small amount of content, maybe 100 words to be added to those pages, just to test the difference. And you can do that through Search Console. And again, how long will it take? Use the CTR model that we've already shown you just to estimate what the actual impact will be when you put that content live. Creating new content, exactly the same. But the rule is that new pages have to be at least as good as current pages. I'm showing you an average ranking. If you're creating pages that are less than average, they're obviously going to bring that down. So maybe consider making something a little bit better than your average. Make a lot of effort on a particular piece of content to start bring that average up. And do the same on mobile as well. It's not all about content that's tailored to desktop. If anything, I would start by looking at how does it look on a mobile device before you start looking at how does it look on a desktop. Google has a really nice tool called Resizer. So if you go on design.google.com/resizer, Google will show you exactly how your content looks on every single screen resolution size, from tablet, desktop, every single kind of smartphone. So you can start to see, actually, if most of my current traffic is coming from Android, for example, at certain resolution size, prioritize that. And I said I'd talk a little bit about a custom click-through rate model. So this is what we actually see on mobile right now. About 25% nearly of clicks go to the first position in Google Organic overall across every industry that we work in. There's about 500 Search Console profiles in here, 22% in the second place. So on mobile, you know, there's still quite a lot of clicks. What we actually tracked here was the difference between the mobile-friendly update before and afterwards, and the difference between click-through rates that we're getting. This is totally skewed by the fact that Google added a 4th PPC ad during this time. So the big difference isn't actually the mobile-friendly update at all, which had very minimal impact. It's all about the 4th PPC ad that's making a huge difference. So in about May this year, 30% of your clicks would go to position 1 on a mobile. Actually, it's only about 24% now. This is industry-wide, so let's talk about finance for a second. It's slightly lower than average. It always has been. The average click-through rate in financial sectors is slightly lower than the overall generic click-through rate because it's so competitive. PPC ads are bigger, etc. iGaming is a really interesting one. So if you are working in iGaming, first place or no place is basically the rule for most keywords, simply because of this. PPC ads are enormous in iGaming. Football odds can take up an entire page on mobile. Fixtures, sign-up bonuses, all these different ad extensions that Google is giving to big advertisers take up all of that space. So as a rule, when we're looking at keyword research, what we need to be looking at is the less competitive terms, the ones that the big players aren't bothered about, and particularly the gaps, like Bing, for example. You can see the full click-through rate study. Again, just search for mobile click-through rate or branded3.com/blog/mobile CTR, or go on the SlideShare presentation, download it. As a summary, I would say, firstly, take Bing seriously when it comes to keywords. It has an older audience, but a better converting audience. You get more clicks from searchers on Bing than you do on Google. Take mobile seriously because the big players don't. That's a generalization across the industry, but most of the big iGaming brands particularly don't perform well on mobile. And finally, your keywords are only as good as the content you want to create. So there's no point creating the most comprehensive keyword research in the world if you're not going to start looking at where am I going to start executing off the back of that. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Stephen. Perfect. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, so do we have any questions on Slido? Let's have a look there. We've got a clean mobile first site, dynamic live data, no walls of text for SEO. Can we expect to rank on keywords purely off their titles and meta tags?
The simple answer is who else ranks? And what I would say to basically explain that is that's what Ladbrokes do, that's what Paddy Power do, that's what these big sites do. No content on those pages at all. No content pages besides their core pages either, and any content that they do create is annexed somewhere on a blog or out of the way from commercial pages. So generally speaking, if you're competing on a level playing field with the biggest brands in the industry, then no, you probably can't expect to rank on the same terms. What I would say is that you don't need to create a wall of text on the same page. What you need is more pages. What you need is to create answers to all of the individual variations of that keyword search to be able to rank for the big keyword. And that's true of pretty much any large keyword.
I had a question. How many keywords do you generally recommend to your clients to go after in the gaming space?
On average, we track 1,000. The reason for that is we have levels of charging for keywords when we're using AWR, so we could track 2,000 and clients don't want to pay for that. So the more the better is what I would say, but it's not necessarily a case that you need to go after 1,000 keywords. What I'm showing you here is how to prioritize. Think about where you're currently doing quite well and expand on that first. So we would generally not go after more than maybe 10 keywords a month in terms of creating content. It's not about huge volume, it's about doing a few things right and then expanding out.
And how many pages would you recommend your clients to build to go after those 10 words?
Again, it depends on the keyword, and you lead with the data. So you start to look at actually how many different variations of this are there. As a rule of thumb, you would always have what is it, how do I do it, or where do I do it, and can I do it with you, basically. So that's at least 3 pages for any keyword that should probably be created if you're wanting to rank for a competitive term. We have, the great example of this is Money Supermarket. So they're trying to rank for credit cards. They have an unlimited number of pages, and that's their strategy. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need thousands of pages, but you need to answer at least all of the big questions that look like they're related to those keywords and keyword suggestions, for example.
Brilliant. Do we have some more questions? Yeah.
Hello. How different Bing ranking system from Google ranking system? Because, for example, my website rank better in Google than in Bing. What would be the reason for that?
So there's a couple of major differences. The first one is you can spam in Bing and you can't spam in Google. So if you're ranking a lot better in Bing than you are in Google, penalties are quite hard to come by in Bing, generally speaking. So that's an indication that something going on in Google. Bing won't care. So that's kind of the opposite issue that you've got. Generally speaking, the main difference, some of the similarities are around engagement metrics, so the amount of time on site, number of pages clicked through, bounce rate, etc. They're the same sort of factors that you'd be wanting to look at on both sites. Actually, Bing was doing that first, but actually links are probably a more significant factor in Bing than they are in Google. So the chances could be quite good that you don't have enough links to rank in Bing, but you've got better engagement than some of your competitors, which is why you're doing quite well in Google. That's certainly the case if you've got a good mobile site as well. So it could be that you're actually doing the right things on site and you need to start looking off site.
We have some more Slido questions as well. Is it true that a click-through rate higher is it true that a click-through rate higher do a rank better in Google? Maybe let's skip that one. I don't know what that one means.
So
let's translate that.
The answer to that is yes, but so yes, it is true as long as you keep the people. So if you get a better click-through rate and people stay there, it's all about whether someone goes back and searches for something again. So if you've got 50% click-through rate, which would be wonderful, but then people immediately go back and click on something else, then you'll rank lower. If you've got a fairly good click-through rate and people stay there, don't search for the same thing again, don't go back and click on the next result, then generally speaking you'll rank higher and higher and higher for that reason. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but that's definitely true, and we see that quite a lot.
And another one that we have is, do targeted SEO pages need to be on the same domain or on a subdomain like blog.mainsite.com? Would that be all right?
Main domain, yeah. That's again fairly true. And the best example I can cite for that really is Ladbrokes again. So we work on sports.ladbrokes.com. All of Ladbrokes' different products are on different different subdomains, effectively, and they all perform completely independently of each other. So some will go up while some go down, and they don't necessarily, when we're building links to the sports domain, for example, has absolutely no impact on the bingo.ladbrokes or the poker.ladbrokes. It's completely independent. So generally speaking, it's a separate website. Your subdomain, blog. And your www. Are two separate websites, and they don't particularly well carry over rankings across the two. Again, we see fairly substantial improvements when we're moving the actual subdomain content onto the main domain, usually about 10 to 20% increase in rankings of traffic.
Okay, for the slides, we're going to share those on the LAC site, and you'll have them. We're also on our Facebook site, and they'll be shared throughout the week. So you'll be able to get slides from our media. Let's see. Well, let's see. What's the next one? Do you know anything about automated or manual click-through rate manipulation?
Yes, I do. So generally speaking, what we see again in this instance is that if it's abnormal behavior, it will change and then change back fairly quickly. So if you are suddenly getting a load of clicks to a page that never came before, and there's no other indication that would be happening or reason for that happening, generally speaking, it's adjusted up and down based on that, and it's discounted. So Google effectively trusts each individual searcher differently. So it's possible to do. It's incredibly difficult to be able to do that at any kind of scale. And generally speaking, if it was possible to do at scale, there'll be some kind of penalty on the way for it. So it's not something that I would say we have decided is worth experimenting in. But again, we do have a blog post about automated CTR manipulation. So if you search for that, it probably ranks quite well. You see it, and some studies that we've done.
And sort of related, how important are those engagement metrics as a ranking indicator?
It very much, again, depends on the industry. So what I would say is that in financial industries, in an industry where Google is very keen to only provide information from really trusted sources, so legal, for example, or kind of any kind of financial advice that might be coming on, links are huge. They are always going to be massive. When it comes to actually popularity, and iGaming is a fantastic example of sports betting, engagement metrics take over. So again, one thing that we've seen with our work with fairly numerous sports betting companies over the years, the higher your sign-up bonus in your ads, the higher you rank. So it's all about actually getting people there and keeping them there. It's very much a case of engagement metrics are absolutely everything in iGaming, I would say.
Okay, I think that's all we have time for. So round of applause, please, for Stephen. That was very informative. Thank you for taking so many questions as well.